Hey y'all, Matt here with another Bible study video, and today I'm actually at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And if you know anything about the theme of Hollywood Studios, or you saw our previous video on heroes, then you know that a prominent theme here is movies. And what movie isn't complete without some kind of a hero and some kind of a villain? And today we're actually going to talk about a villain from the Bible. And it's a villain that is very well known, and his name is Judas Iscariot. We're going to talk about him, and we're going to talk about two lessons that we can actually learn from him. But before we get into this topic, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends so we can reach more people. But Judas Iscariot, what does the Bible tell us about this villain from the Bible? We know from the Gospels that Judas Iscariot was called by Jesus himself to be one of his disciples. And John actually identifies him as carrying the money bag for him. So he basically was in charge of all their finances, and he carried all the donations that they got. John also tells us in chapter 12, verses 5 and 6, that he stole money from the money bag. We also know about Judas that he kissed Jesus and called him Rabbi when he betrayed Jesus to identify him to the men that came to arrest him and that would eventually crucify him. And he betrayed Jesus in return for what we see in Matthew chapter 26 verse 15 as 30 pieces of silver, which was actually the cost of a slave back in that time period. So Judas basically betrayed him for what it would cost to buy a slave. In Matthew chapter 27 verses 1 through 10, we see that after he learns that Jesus is going to be crucified, Judas actually tries to return the money. He doesn't want it anymore. He tries to give the silver back. And so the silver ended up being used to buy this field that's called the field of blood in Scripture. And it was called this, one, because it was bought with blood money, but two, it was also used to bury strangers in, because these strangers wouldn't have had anybody to take care of them after they died, and they wouldn't have family to bury them. So that's what this field was used for. We also know, a lot of people don't know this, but after Judas betrays Jesus, the guilt is so bad he ends up actually taking his own life by hanging. And then soon after that, in the book of Acts, we actually see Judas's place as a disciple, as one of the 12, is filled by Matthias. They cast lots, the remaining 11 cast lots for the spot and identify Matthias as the person to take his spot. But what are two things that we can learn from Judas? One of them is, no matter how close we are to Jesus, we have to be careful. No matter how close we are in our walk with the Lord, no matter how godly we are, no matter what titles we have, whether you're a teacher, a pastor, a small group leader, whatever, you can have all the head knowledge in the world about God, but if your heart's not in the right spot and you're not obedient to the Lord, that it's very, very easy for us to fall. We are all susceptible to falling, and we all have to be very, very careful. Have to keep ourselves free of pride so that we're self-aware to know when we're slipping away, when we're in trouble. Remember, Judas was so close to Jesus that Jesus actually washed his feet before he betrayed him. Number two, if we're hurt by people that are part of the church, that's not of God, but God can and will use it. Judas was part of the church, essentially. He was one of Jesus' 12. He was one of the closest to him, and yet he was a sinful man, and he did something horrific that ended up basically causing Jesus to lose his life. God used that in a powerful way as part of his plan, because he knew it was going to happen. So he used it as part of his plan for the sacrificial death of Jesus, which gives us all salvation. But it's a lesson for us that when church people hurt us, that God can still use that. You know, we have to keep in mind, sometimes we think church people should be completely holy and sin-free, but that's not the case. And in the case of Judas, he was a sinful man. He probably hurt the disciples too in this betrayal. I can't imagine how they felt after he did this. Yet they didn't quit Jesus' ministry team. They didn't find a new place to worship. They continued on following Jesus despite the sins of this Jesus follower, allegedly. But these are two lessons that we can learn from this villain, Judas. But I hope this this video was beneficial to you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, share it. If you need a study Bible, please text me, email me. I'll make sure I get you a study Bible. It's a big part of Three Strands Ministries, getting people reading the Word for themselves and not just depending on other people to feed them information. You should always be going back in Scripture and verifying that what people teach you is true, because if it's not in the Word, then it's not true. It doesn't count, it doesn't happen. But until the next video, I love you guys. Blessings.